Hello, fellow mech warriors, Mage Leader here, and man, I have got to tell you, I wasn't really looking forward to this. I have had a very long day. I was hoping my next video that I'd put out would be my video on the Nodachi, which is going to be pretty cool, I think. Gonna be a lot of fun. I am actively working on it right now, but before I really got a chance to get into the swing of the new job that I've got, the new schedule, trying to get everything kind of laid out and smoothed over so that I can get a better sort of upload schedule going, something came up. And this really started yesterday, but I kind of became aware of it being a major thing today while I was at work. And I hadn't really planned on covering it because, well, basically everybody's talking about it. Razorfist put in his 2 cents on Twitter. I know Big Red is going to discuss it while he's on his stream. Blaine Pardo has been in people's comment sections talking about it. It's been all over Discord. It's basically everywhere. But I had some people asking me if I was going to talk about it, and so I decided, yeah, I probably should. There's a good amount of people that want to know what I have to say about this, and it does involve Catalyst. And I said before, I'm not going to give them any sort of free publicity. I'm not going to be reviewing their products or painting their miniatures or anything like that. But when they do something this pig-headed, this stupid, this attempt at actively altering the established lore, you know, the stuff that went before, that's where I'm starting. I think that I'm justified in covering something that they're doing. You know, my argument has been, go for the old stuff, it's better. Well, now they're actively trying to change the old stuff. Make it so that you can't enjoy what you used to be able to enjoy. Or they're essentially forcing their customers to go back to older stuff in order to have the things that they've always had. Which, I mean, that's kind of par for the course for Catalyst, but here we go. So I worked a long 11-hour day. I am dog-tired. My feet are killing me. But rather than going back to my bedroom and cuddling with Mrs. Mage like I wanted to do this evening, I am instead going to have to talk about Catalyst and their latest stupidity. So what did they do? Well, keep in mind that I'm working on largely secondhand information here, so not necessarily every detail that I have is 100% accurate, but I've done my best to check on things and get a good picture of the events. So, the situation, as I understand it, is that one of the official Battletech artists, I believe it was Anthony Scroggins, it may have been Bishop Steiner, one of the two, I think, they posted a picture of new artwork for the Patent Tank. And the Patent Tank is a fan favorite. It's always kind of been part of a duo, the Patent Tank and the Rommel tank. They're similar to each other in a lot of ways, and they kind of go hand in hand, and they're named after rival generals from World War II, so they kind of tend to be a pair. But if all he'd done was just upload a picture of the new art for, you know, just the Patent Tank, there wouldn't be an issue here. From what I understand, what happened next was somebody left a comment asking when they would do one of the Rommel. It's a fairly, you know, benign, innocuous question to ask. Hey, you done this part of the famous duo? When will we see the next one? And the answer they got from an official Catalyst employee, I don't know which one, but I am assured that it was someone who actually is, you know, works at Catalyst and is either in the loop or partially responsible for these types of decisions. He replied that the Rommel no longer exists and will not be getting any artwork because it's just not a thing anymore. People asked why, and he responded by invoking the Facebook group's no politics policy. A bit odd. Okay, so you're saying that your reason for getting rid of it is political. Well, what's so political about the... Oh... It's the name, isn't it? It's named the Rommel tank. Oh my god. Okay. So, it would appear, while we can't necessarily attribute motive, it seems to be the most likely explanation. I mean, the only political reason that you could see the tank as being problematic and deciding to no longer include it in your fictional setting is because it happens to be named after one of the antagonists of World War II, the wily desert fox himself, Field Marshal Erwin Rommel. So, I guess we can't have things that are named after problematic people anymore. Not in Battletech. So, if anything has a troublesome name, we can probably expect it to get canned, because this is the path Catalyst has chosen to go down. Man, and they start out with something incredibly... Like, normally when these sorts of things happen, you start with something small that everyone can agree on. Like, oh yeah, well, we definitely don't want something named after that guy. It makes perfect sense to get rid of it. But the Rommel tank is something that people actually like. It's just another clear-cut example of how Catalyst either doesn't know or doesn't give a shit what their fans like. I talk about a company that has absolutely no respect for its consumers. Well, here you go. Catalyst Game Labs, ladies and gentlemen. These guys do not give a shit about you. If anything, they hold you with disdain. You like the Rommel tank. They don't. And what they say goes. You spend the money. You're the one who makes sure that they turn a profit at the end of the day. But, what you like doesn't matter anywhere near as much as what they find to be problematic. Was there honestly anyone in the Battletech player base who found the tank being named Rommel as a problem? Who is out there complaining about this other than fucking Sig Marxism? Oh my god. I cannot think of a single person who finds the names of Battletech to be a problem. In any capacity. But, we've opened a massive box of... We've opened Pandora's box here, is what we've done. So, we've put our foot in the door for changing the names of things because Catalyst decides that they don't like them anymore. So, I suppose the question comes up once again. Where the fuck does it stop? We've got something that was named after a German from the 1940s. Okay, well, we've also got tons of things in Battletech that are named after other Germans from around that time period. Germans who contributed something to the world at large. I believe there's a place called Von Braun. We could go on for ages and ages about names in Battletech. There's so many. And the vast majority of things are references and callbacks to history. It's one of the things I like about the fictional setting. Hell, I like that the tank was called the Rommel because I have some respect for the historical figure that is Erwin Rommel. Think about it. The guy was, sure, on the wrong side, absolutely, but you cannot deny that he was an effective commander. He pioneered armored tactics as we know them today. The guy was one of the greatest commanders in the history of warfare. That's the reason why they named a tank after him. He is the tank guy. Oh my god. But no, the idea that there is anybody in history who was on the wrong side of an issue by modern standards, or hell, even for the standards of their time, in Rommel's case, there could be somebody on the wrong side who did something of genuine value. That entire concept is doublethink for the types of people who are working at Catalyst right now, apparently. They just cannot handle the concept that maybe, just maybe, you can learn something by looking at the quote-unquote bad guys of history. That you can't have any respect for them in any regard. that you have to demonize every single one of them at every turn, and make sure that you never, ever, ever, ever say anything positive about them or anything that they did. If you say that, the famous Austrian guy with the bad mustache made some good paintings, well then, congratulations, you are literally worse than him. Oh my god. This is the type of thing that, we've been worried about, isn't it? I mean, these are the same people who went around, a few years ago, still going around now, trying to get statues of Confederates taken down. We can't have any respect or any sort of appreciation for anybody who was on the wrong side of history because they were on the wrong side of history, and so we must demonize them and everything that they stood for and did. That's the only option that we have. And so, in a little while, we're left with this whitewashed version of history where everything is black and white all the time and there's nothing but good guys and bad guys. Oh man, wouldn't history be so much easier to study if that was reality? Wouldn't everything in the world be just so much simpler if you could just point at the person who disagrees with you and say they're a demon and have it actually be true? Could you imagine what a wonderful world it would be if everything was black and white and it was so blindingly obvious what the right and wrong things were to do at all times? Wouldn't that be great? But that's not how history works. That's not how reality works. It's not how anything works. And really, that's one of the biggest problems with taking this approach to it. How are you supposed to learn from the mistakes of other people and learn to apply it to yourself if you come at it with the arrogance of, I would never have done that because I always do the right thing? It's more beneficial to look at history and say, yeah, this guy had some positive qualities, but he made some steps incorrectly here and there. Show that, even people with good intentions can wind up in the wrong spot. But that doesn't mean that you can't admire what was good about them. And this is going to be a problem in Battletech going forward, I think. Battletech has a ton of things named after the Confederacy. And no, it's not because there's a bunch of lost causers in, the Battletech writing team. That's not the case. Anyone who's ever paid any attention to the lore will know that's not the case. Mostly because the Lost Cause is kind of a straw man anyway, but that's besides the point. No, there are things named after Confederate generals, famous historical figures of that nature, or battlefields where the Confederacy won major victories. The reason things are named after them is because they are significant to history, and history is significant to the people of Battletech. It's one of the things that gives the setting color. It's one of the things that gives the setting some intrigue, makes it interesting, makes it fun to interact with, is that all these people have an understanding and appreciation of history, and that so many of the events that take place in Battletech in its lore are either directly pulled from history, like it's history repeating itself, or they're a reference to history, a callback to history in some way or another, and it makes events, for the most part, play out in a believable manner, up until the clan invasion. You want to know why so many people love the Succession Wars era? It's because it plays out like genuine history. You want to know why so many people love Battletech, and why a lot of people have problems with things like the FedCom Civil War? It's because the FedCom Civil War has a very easy arch-villain. Someone with no moral complexity whatsoever. Somebody who is so outright mustache-twirlingly evil that they're a caricature more than a character. Even Stephen Amaris at least had a character reason for why he did all of his evil shit. And that's going to be a problem going forward. If you can't look at historical things with a more objective lens, if the very idea of naming something after someone who was an enemy of ours at one point in history, who was on the wrong side of history at one point or another, if that concept is too much for you to handle, then you have no business writing Battletech lore whatsoever, and my god, it is no surprise whatsoever that the overarching events of the Ill Clan era up to where I gave up on it altogether were such a godforsaken mess, because the edicts from on high are coming from people who don't understand their history, who look at it through the most simplistic, reductive lens possible. So again, where does this stop? What's the future of Battletech look like in Catalyst's care? Does it stop with the Rommel tank? Of course it doesn't. It never stops with one thing. It never does. It always pushes ahead until there's nothing left but the most benign, inoffensive, bland, and uninteresting type of science fiction you can possibly get. Oh, there will be attempts at making it dark and interesting, but it'll come across more like an edgy teenager listening to fucking Disturbed back circa like 2009. The type of darkness you would see in Star Trek Discovery or Picard, just cheap shock value. Oh look, we showed a guy getting his eye ripped out. Aren't we so edgy and cool and interesting? No, because you don't know how to fucking write a compelling story. You think that you give a story depth just by giving it gore and violence of unspeakable proportions. Having a super high body count is how you make a story interesting. Never mind that you can't figure out how to write characters well because you refuse to look at humans through anything other than complete black and white. Someone is either completely correct or completely wrong. You can't write a story without preaching at your audience as if they don't already know the incredibly basic moral quandaries that you're putting forward, as if you had any actual insight to provide. And it always starts with something like this. Something small. Just one tank, because we don't like what it's called. But then this other tank over here, or this planet over here, it's also named after something that we don't like. And oh, this guy over here that we want to make, the antagonist for our favorite faction for the next set of lore, well, he's just going to act like the worst garbage type of human being, like those guys that we deleted, because that's what we think all these historical figures are. That's how we're going to handle the lore going forward. It's a tremendous insight into the mindset of the people who are in charge of the whole thing right now. And I cannot stress enough that now is the time to jump ship from Catalyst and just go back into the old stuff. I made a video about how to enjoy Battletech without Catalyst. I've heard that Razorfist is also considering working on a similar type of project, and go pester him until he does, because the guy makes good content. I'd love to see what he comes up with, and he makes, he knows more about Battletech than I do. So anything that he comes up with will probably put my old video to shame, but go watch it anyway because I made it for you, and it took some work. So that's more or less what I have to say on the issue. I could talk about it all night if I wanted, but honestly, I'm just kind of repeating myself at this point. It's been about 20 minutes, and I am incredibly tired and want to go to bed. But before I do, I'm just going to reiterate, just don't bother with Catalyst anymore, man. These guys are driving this franchise into the ground. They do not like you. They don't care what you like about the hobby. They don't care what you like about the lore. They don't care what you like about the story. They have their own ideas about what you should be enjoying, what you're allowed to enjoy. And it's only a matter of time before there is nothing left to it that you enjoy. So stick with the parts of Battletech that are good. Be a grognard like the rest of us. It shouldn't be a dirty word anymore, not with what Catalyst is doing. And if anyone from CGL is watching, now would be a very good time to reconsider your course of action. Because we're sick of it. We're just tired of watching the same charade play out with every single pop culture thing in existence. Please, for the love of God, just leave it alone. Otherwise, we're just going to leave you. And that's going to be the end of it. There is plenty of Battletech for us to enjoy. without your godforsaken company. So, like I said before, that's pretty much the rant over. That's all I had to say. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to put a bunch of production value into this. Like I said, I made this before going to bed after a long day at work. I appreciate it if you stuck with me this long. Leave a like and a comment if you're so inclined. Share the video around if you're so inclined. I greatly appreciate everything that you guys do and for your patience while I work on my next project. I promise you, it's going to be a fun one next go around. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, this is Mage Leader, signing off.